Alright, so we just did a video going over Yuzuha and basically talking about her overall kit, breaking down some potential team cons for you guys to look into if you plan to pull her, and even going over her overall value to help you guys decide if you should or shouldn't pull her. And so now it's time to do the same exact thing for Alice, which, if I'm going to be honest, she's actually the character I'm most excited for out of this patch. This is a character that has the potential to rival a lot of the Anomaly units that we already have in the game, and she's looking like that she's going to pair really well with units like Yuzuha, which I can't wait to dive into. So for this video, not only are we going to be covering the same exact information that we talked about with Yuzuha, we're also going to be discussing a very big topic that I think a lot of you guys are looking for, which is if she actually power creeps the rat. So to get this started, let's begin with going over Alice's kit. Alice is a physical anomaly unit that specializes in assault damage over time and polarized assaults through her unique resource known as Blade Etiquette. This is a resource that's built to grant her access to her hold basic attack Starshine Waltz, which is an invulnerable blade strike that launches multiple slashes, inflicting a heavy blow to enemies, dealing massive physical damage and physical anomaly buildup. Now, in order for Alice to perform this skill, she only needs 1 bar of Blade Etiquette, but if she consumes 3 bars and lands the final strike of her hold basic, she will trigger a polarized assault, dealing 1 instance of assault damage no matter how much anomaly she's built. Now, the unique thing about these polarized assaults is that they are able to interact with other attribute anomalies, including assault, allowing Alice to be able to trigger disorders with any attribute in the game. This in itself is already really strong for Alice, because being able to trigger these assaults and disorders whenever she wants puts her in a similar ballpark of strength of units like Yanagi and potentially even Miyabi. What's even crazier is that her strength with this unique mechanic goes even beyond this, as you're able to quick swap off Alice while she's performing her hold basic, continuing to attack off field. This is pretty similar to Miyabi's hold basic, but what's interesting about Alice's is that she's able to still trigger polarized assaults and disorder even though she's off field. This means not only are her strengths in line with units like Miyabi and Yanagi, but she's even able to break the rules of how anomaly and disorder effects can be applied, like Bernice and Vivian. I don't know who on the development team decided to make Alice this cracked, but if I'm gonna be honest, I kinda like it and I wanna know more about her. Now, we talked about her Blade Etiquette and how it can be utilized, but we didn't talk about how to build this resource. Alice builds Blade Etiquette whenever she performs her EX special attack, accumulates anomaly buildup, and when she inflicts assaults. Her additional ability also allows her to restore Blade Etiquette whenever any agent triggers disorder on her team, as long as she has an anomaly or support unit in the squad. This means it's actually really easy to build Blade Etiquette for Alice, basically allowing her to always have the ability to trigger polarized assaults whenever she's ready. Her additional ability also grants her extra anomaly proficiency when her anomaly mastery reaches a certain level, so definitely expect those assaults and disorders to deal some good damage. To bring it back to her assaults, Alice's core passive Twin Rainbows of the Sword Heart grants her the ability to deal assault DOT when any agent or her team triggers an assault on an enemy. This DOT lasts the entire duration of the anomaly effect, and the damage it deals is based on a percentage of the original assault damage dealt to the enemy. If this assault triggers a disorder, the damage multiplier of the disorder is then increased. This is why this character is strong and why she's going to be considered one of the best anomaly agents in the game. Because when you pair this with her polarized assault, Alice and her team are going to be doing some of the best damage in the entire game. They then go over her special and EX special attacks, which have the perfect dodge property similar to Evelyn and Yi Xuan's. These moves are sword strikes that send out physical projectiles before ending with a final thrust to deal a great amount of physical damage. This move is hands down one of the coolest skills that the dev team has ever made, and I really like it a lot because it's honestly just Alice flexing her swordsmanship, which looks super sick. All in all though, Alice is an amazing Anomaly DPS that seems like she will be pretty similar to Yanagi, where she can be your primary DPS on your team while also having sub DPS potential to help support another. I love DPS that can fill roles like this, easily making Alice one of the characters I look forward to the most within 2.1. Now, if you're wondering how to pilot her, it's actually pretty simple. What you want to do first is inflict physical anomaly to enemies in order for Alice to trigger an assault, so that Alice can begin inflicting assault DOT as soon as possible. While this is active, this grants you the perfect time to switch into your secondary Anomaly DPS to trigger a disorder, which will receive disorder damage multiplier increases that are tied to Alice's core passive. Now, let's say the other DPS triggers an anomaly effect on another set of enemies. Well, at this point, your Alice should have built enough blade etiquette to perform her whole basic attack, allowing you to deal physical damage while triggering both a polarized assault and disorder on your enemies without even increasing your anomaly buildup. This is important to mention because once Alice ultimate is available, you can then immediately trigger it to deal massive damage, massively build up anomaly to trigger assault and a disorder again, while also gaining max etiquette to trigger another polarized assault. This character becomes insane once you get her rotations down and when you have her paired with really strong anomaly characters, making it feel like that her teams are always triggering assault or some form of anomaly effect as well as disorders. This is what makes Alice stand out and is the primary reason I'm super excited to look into so many different teams with this character. Speaking of which, let's go over some team comp. When brainstorming teams for Alice, I think there's currently only a few options at her disposal. Now these options are strong, but they will require you to heavily invest into other premium units. Some of these teams I'm thinking of are Alice Yanagi Yuzuha and Alice Vivian Yuzuha. These are more than likely going to be her go-to comps when first releasing in 2.1. This is because all of these units properly complement the style of play that Alice is looking for, but keep in mind both Yuzuha and Vivian actually have some solid replacements that fill a very similar role for Alice. Astra, of course, being the Yuzuha replacement and Bernice being the Vivian replacement. Now starting with Alice Yanagi Yuzuha, this team is what we like to call Disorder Central. This is because Yanagi is a unit that is designed to increase the damage multipliers of disorders while also being able to trigger her own unique ones known as Polarity Disorder. We pair this with Alice's ability to trigger polarized assaults, which can trigger disorders without even increasing her anomaly buildup, and we end up with a pair of units that will more than likely be triggering disorders more often than any other team in the game. This doesn't even factor in Yuzuha's supportive capability, where she offers an increase to anomaly buildup rate, attribute anomaly damage, disorder damage, and even an attack and damage boost overall. All of this paired together ends up making this one of the hardest hitting teams in the game, but I think it's also going to be one of the hardest to pilot. This is because both Alice and Yanagi are pretty active on-field characters that will require you to master quick swap timing between the two in order to fully take advantage of their team's damage potential. Kind of like how Yanagi and Miyabi works. You'll end up needing to squeeze in a bit of field time for Yuzuha as well to replenish her resources and buff, making this a very strong team on paper, but not easy to pilot at all. This is where you can then slot in Astra to have an easier team, but with just more general buffs. It will more than likely not be as strong since Astra's buffs don't directly benefit the core game plan of Anomaly units, but her buffs are overall strong enough that she'll still be a nice unit to use and slot for this team. Rena can even work here as well since she's already listed as a great free-to-play option for Yanagi due to her being able to buff electric damage and pin. Now with the second team of Alice, Vivian, and Yuzuha, I think this is a team that most players will gravitate towards too. That's because this team is basically Anomaly's version of a hyper carry comp, even though it's still a disorder team, since both Vivian and Yuzuha are designed to amplify the performance of Alice. Vivian is here to trigger her blooms off field whenever Alice performs an EX special, triggers assaults and polarized assaults, as well as disorders. This should lead to additional physical anomaly damage for the team because of how bloom works, while also still leading to a good amount of disorder triggers. You then pair this with Yuzuha being able to offer the buffs we mentioned before, as well as being able to help influence the anomaly build up for Alice on this team, and you end up with a comp that actually triggers a lot of physical anomaly and damage mixed in with disorders with Vivian's ether damage. This is pretty much going to operate pretty similarly to how Yanagi and Vivian works together. So ideally you just need to make sure that Vivian keeps up with her bloom stacks as fast as Alice will be triggering them. Now if you don't have Vivian, Bernice can easily slide in her position and work just as well with Alice. It'll probably even be easier since all you need to do is make sure nitro fuel is applied to targets when DPSing with Alice. Yuzuha of course can be replaced with Astra for this team, and overall it should function just like any other team that uses Astra. All in all though, building a team for Alice is probably going to be a bit more limited than expected. I know a lot of you are probably wondering, but what about Miyabi and even Jane? On paper they sound like they could work, and you're probably thinking that they seem even really strong. But if we think about how these characters perform their rotations and how on field hungry they are, it's kind of hard for me to see how they'll actually work directly with Alice because of how her rotations are currently looking. I know I did say that she could potentially be like another Yanagi, but we don't know for sure just yet. So I don't want to sell you guys that idea if it doesn't look like it's going to actually pan out. I just need time to be able to test that to make sure to see if these type of teams can work. But for now, I just want to give you guys these teams since these seem like very solid and ideal ones that will work really well with Alice. Even with the small sample size of characters that can work with Alice though, I still think that she has a really nice selection of units at her disposal to pick from. She basically has 3 of the best sub DPSs in the game that can work with her, while also having 2 of the best supports. She can even utilize a unit like Caesar, or go for some free-to-play options like Nicole, Lucy, or Rena. It just depends on the team that she's running. Regardless though, Alice has enough options at her disposal for her to be able to build strong and consistent teams for most players to use. Her best ones are definitely going to be on the more premium side of things, and if you don't have any of those on your account, they're definitely going to require you to invest a lot within this upcoming patch. But if I'm going to be honest, I don't think that's going to be feasible for any player that's in that current position. But that's everything that I have for Alice though in regards to her team comps. Now that we've breaking all those down and we've discussed how strong that I think those teams are going to be, I think it's the perfect time to discuss Alice's overall value and get to the real nitty-gritty question that you guys are looking for. If she's worth pulling or not, and if she's actually here to power creep the rat, Jane. When it comes to thinking about the overall value of Alice, we have to compare her to every other Anomaly character in the game. This is because she's coming in an era where the Anomaly class is actually pretty healthy, so a lot of players don't necessarily need a new unit at this very moment. With keeping this into consideration and looking at her overall potential strength, I would say Alice is a unit that's worthwhile for players that are new to the game, spanning from 1.5 to 2.0, and are looking to start investing into Anomaly, as well as if they are just someone that likes the character overall. I say this because as of right now, almost every Anomaly character in the game are easily clearing in-game content. This means that most of you that are already invested into Anomaly aren't really struggling with anything right now, making Alice more of a luxury pick than a necessity for you. But for all my new players, you probably can't say the same. This is because since you joined the game, there's only been one new Anomaly character that's released, and that's Vivian, and the only ones that have reran have been Bernice and Jane. That means 2 of those Anomaly characters have been sub DPS that wasn't really worth investing into if you hadn't already been invested into Anomaly, and the only primary DPS was the one character that's been struggling since her release, and she ran on the same banner as Vivian. So with laying all that out, I think it is fair for me to say that Alice is a character that's 100% worthwhile for a lot of you guys to invest into. This is because more than likely this character is going to be strong enough to hold her own with some budget comps until you can pull some better teammates for her. She's also not going to face the same issues as our physical DPS with having no physical weak enemies, which is a bonus for her as well as our other physical units. With that being said though, I think it's finally time to answer the tough question that you guys been looking for. Does Alice power creep Jane? Truthfully, it seems like the answer is yes. I think both of these units will be sharing a lot of the same teams with one another, especially the Vivian Yuzuha comp. This is mostly due to both units filling a very similar role on an Anomaly team, but there's a potential that Alice could play a sub DPS role similar to Yanagi. Now this doesn't mean that her and Jane would necessarily work with one another, but this would open up other team comps for Alice to use as a whole. Even if any of this is true though, I don't think you should pull Alice because she'll end up being just a better Jane. This is because the dev team has already shown us that they're willing to buff characters if the community feels that a unit is underperforming to the point that they are just not enjoyable for players overall. I don't think Jane has gotten to that point just yet, and if I'm going to be fair, we haven't seen the peak of her strength since we've been waiting on physical weak enemies to be coming into the game for so long. I believe if you're someone that enjoys Jane, just keep playing Jane. You shouldn't need to invest into another physical Anomaly character just because she's going to be quote-unquote stronger than her. Jane is comfortably clearing content right now even without having any physical weak enemies really, and when new physical weak enemies come to the game, she's going to be sitting pretty comfortably and fine, which is going to be good for her, and I can't wait to test mines out and actually see how she's going to be performing even better with in-game content. But if you're someone that thinks Alice is cool and you haven't invested into the Anomaly meta just yet, I will 100% recommend you to grab this character because she is going to be great and she is going to be a lot of fun and she's going to be someone that you're more than likely going to enjoy. But all in all, that is everything that I have in regards to Alice for this video. Hopefully all the information I provided for you guys was helpful in order for you to figure out if you plan to pull or not pull for her. If you do or if you don't, let me know in the comments below, and also let me know what teams you plan to be running with her because I would love to actually hear some of your ideas. I feel like my brain sort of could have been potentially a little limited on what I think some of her comps might be, so you guys could probably help me broaden my horizons on what things probably work with Alice that I'm not thinking of. I appreciate you guys with all your love and support. Remember to leave a like and subscribe to the channel if you are new. Don't forget to join the Discord if you haven't yet, and always remember to believe in you that believes in yourself. I'll see you guys in the next one.